In a quiet suburban neighborhood where manicured lawns and perfectly trimmed hedges were the pride of every homeowner, there lived a man named Alex Carter. He was not your typical neighbor. Unlike most people in his community who drove sedans or minivans, Alex had a taste for luxury that turned heads wherever he went. His latest acquisition? A brand new Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, painted in a glossy shade of midnight blue, with golden accents that shimmered under the sun. The car wasn't just a toy, it was a statement, a symbol of success, hard work, and ambition. Alex was no stranger to attention. As a tech entrepreneur, he had built his fortune from scratch by creating cutting-edge software solutions for businesses worldwide. But despite his wealth, Alex was humble. He didn't flaunt his riches unnecessarily, though owning a Lambo naturally made him stand out. Every morning he would step out of his modern two-story home, grab his coffee mug, and admire the sleek machine sitting proudly in his driveway. To him, the car represented freedom, the kind you earn after years of relentless effort. But this wasn't just any ordinary supercar. Unknown to everyone except Alex and a select group of federal agents, the Lamborghini was secretly rigged with advanced surveillance equipment. It was part of an ongoing operation led by Homeland Security to track down a dangerous international cybercrime syndicate. These hackers weren't amateurs. They were highly skilled individuals capable of infiltrating government systems, stealing classified information, and causing chaos on a global scale. What they wanted now was access to a specific set of data tied to financial institutions, and Homeland Security needed bait to catch them. That's where Alex came in. When his cybersecurity firm flagged suspicious activity linked to these criminals, federal agents approached him with a proposal. Allow them to use his prized possession as a decoy vehicle equipped with hidden cameras, GPS trackers, and even a false compartment containing fake data, drives designed to look like valuable intel. For Alex, it was a chance to give back to society while playing a role in something bigger than himself. Plus, he trusted the feds to keep both him and his car safe. The plan seemed foolproof until Karen Miller entered the picture. Karen was what some might call the queen bee of the Homeowners Association, HOA. She prided herself on enforcing rules with an iron fist, ensuring that everyone followed the strict guidelines laid out in the HOA handbook. From lawn maintenance schedules to noise restrictions, nothing escaped her watchful eye. And while many neighbors found her overbearing, few dared to challenge her authority. After all, crossing Karen meant risking fines, public shaming at HOA meetings, or worse, being subjected to her infamous passive-aggressive letters slipped under your door. To Karen, Alex was a thorn in her side. While other residents adhered to her demands without question, Alex often pushed back. Whether it was refusing to repaint his mailbox to match the approved color palette or declining to remove decorative lights from his porch during non-holiday seasons, he had a knack for testing her patience. But nothing irritated Karen more than the sight of that flashy Lamborghini parked in his driveway day after day. In her mind, it was a blatant display of arrogance, an affront to the modesty and uniformity she worked so hard to maintain in the neighborhood. One sunny afternoon, Karen decided to pay Alex a visit. Clutching her clipboard and wearing her signature oversized sunglasses, she marched up to his front door with purpose. When Alex answered, she wasted no time getting to the point. "Alex," she began, her voice dripping with thinly veiled disdain, "I'm here to remind you about Section 3+1 of the HOA regulations. Vehicles must be stored in garages overnight. Your car has been violating this rule consistently." Alex raised an eyebrow, sipping his coffee calmly. "Karen, I've read the rules, and nowhere does it say I can't park my car in my driveway if I choose to. Besides, I paid for this property, including the driveway. If I want to leave my car outside, that's my decision." Karen bristled at his defiance. Her jaw tightened as she scribbled furiously on her clipboard. "Well, perhaps you should reconsider," she said through gritted teeth. "It's disruptive to the aesthetic of the neighborhood. People are talking, Alex. They don't appreciate the constant reminder of your extravagance." Alex chuckled softly, unfazed by her theatrics. If people have a problem with my car, they're welcome to come talk to me directly. Until then, I'll keep parking it wherever I please." With that, he shut the door gently but firmly, leaving Karen fuming on the porch. As she stormed back to her own house, muttering under her breath about entitled millennials, a plan began forming in her head. If Alex refused to play by the rules, she would take matters into her own hands. Little did she know her actions would set off a chain of events far beyond anything she could have imagined. Over the next few days, Karen stewed over the encounter. She couldn't let Alex get away with such blatant disregard for the HOA's standards. Something had to be done, not just for the sake of the neighborhood's appearance, but also to assert her dominance. After all, if she let one person break the rules without consequence, what message would that send to everyone else? Her opportunity came sooner than expected. One evening, as dusk settled over the cul-de-sac, Karen noticed Alex heading out for dinner. He locked the Lambo using a wheel clamp, a heavy-duty device designed to prevent theft, and strolled casually toward a waiting Uber. Watching from behind her curtains, Karen smirked to herself. This was her chance. She waited until the streetlights flickered on and the neighborhood fell silent. Then, armed with bolt cutters stolen from her husband's toolbox, she crept out of her house and made her way to Alex's driveway. Her heart raced as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She told herself this wasn't vandalism, it was justice. Alex needed to learn a lesson, and she was the one to teach it. As she knelt beside the gleaming Lambo, Karen marveled at its beauty. For a brief moment, she almost felt guilty about what she was about to do. Almost. Shaking off the hesitation, she positioned the bolt cutters around the lock and squeezed with all her might. The sharp metallic snap echoed through the night, startling a nearby squirrel. With the lock removed, Karen stood up, brushing dirt off her hands. Phase 1 of her plan was complete. What Karen didn't realize, however, was that the lock wasn't just a deterrent for common thieves. It was installed by Homeland Security as an additional safeguard to ensure no unauthorized person could tamper with the vehicle. Inside, the Lambo sensors detected the breach and immediately sent alerts to federal command centers. Meanwhile, Karen climbed into the driver's seat, admiring the plush leather interior and futuristic dashboard. Ignoring the faint blinking lights that signaled the car's compromised state, she turned the ignition key and revved the engine. The deep roar of the V12 sent shivers down her spine. For the first time in her life, Karen felt truly powerful. Without another thought, she shifted into gear and sped off down the street, leaving skid marks on the pristine asphalt. Neighbors peeked out their windows in shock, wondering who could possibly be driving Alex's prized possession. Little did they know, Karen's joyride was only the beginning of a wild and unpredictable journey, one that would involve high-speed chases, federal agents, and a cyber-criminal network lurking in the shadows. As Karen sped away in the Lamborghini, her heart pounded with a mix of exhilaration and defiance. The powerful engine roared beneath her, propelling her forward at speeds she'd never experienced before. For someone who usually drove a modest sedan, this was an entirely new world, one filled with adrenaline, luxury, and freedom. She felt untouchable, like she had finally taken control of something that didn't belong to her but somehow deserved to be taught a lesson. The dashboard lights blinked erratically as she pushed the car harder, weaving through empty suburban streets. To Karen, these warning signals were just quirks of the high-tech machine, nothing more than minor annoyances. What she didn't know was that every flash, every beep, and every subtle vibration was part of a sophisticated system designed to alert Homeland Security agents monitoring the vehicle remotely. Inside their command center miles away, alarms blared as technicians scrambled to assess the situation. Alex, meanwhile, was enjoying a quiet dinner at a local restaurant when his phone buzzed insistently on the table. At first, he ignored it, assuming it was another work email or social media notification. But when he glanced down and saw multiple alerts from the secure app Homeland Security had installed on his device, his blood ran cold. Each message carried the same urgent warning: unauthorized use detected, vehicle compromised. Panic gripped him as he excused himself from the table and stepped outside to call his handler. Agent Ramirez. Within seconds, the agent picked up, his voice calm yet tinged with urgency. Alex, we've got eyes on your car. Someone has tampered with the wheel lock and is currently driving it. We're tracking its location in real time, so stay calm. Do not attempt to intervene. Who could possibly be doing this? Alex asked, his mind racing. He thought about the threats he'd received recently, the anonymous notes left on his windshield accusing him of being arrogant and flaunting his wealth, but none of those incidents seemed serious enough to escalate to theft. Then it hit him. Wait, do you think it's Karen? You know, the HOA woman? Agent Ramirez paused for a moment before responding. It's possible, we'll look into it. Right now, our priority is ensuring the operation isn't compromised. Whoever is behind the wheel doesn't realize they're sitting in a federal surveillance vehicle. Let us handle this. Reluctantly, Alex agreed to stand down, though his stomach churned with worry. He couldn't shake the image of Karen behind the wheel of his prized Lambo, blissfully unaware of the chaos she was about to unleash. Back on the road, Karen reveled in her newfound sense of power. She imagined herself as some kind of renegade, breaking free from the constraints of her mundane life. The thrill of speeding past streetlights and feeling the rumble of the V12 engine drowned out any lingering guilt she might have felt about stealing Alex's car. As far as she was concerned, this was justified punishment for his arrogance. But Karen wasn't alone on the highway. Unbeknownst to her, Homeland security agents were already mobilizing teams to track and recover the vehicle, equipped with live GPS data and aerial drones. They followed her movements silently, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Meanwhile, hidden systems within the Lamborghini began activating safety protocols designed to prevent unauthorized users from causing harm, or worse, discovering the decoy compartment containing fake data drives. At first, Karen noticed small changes in the car's behavior. The accelerator seemed sluggish, refusing to respond fully when she pressed down on the pedal. Frustrated, she tapped the gas repeatedly, wondering if the supercar was malfunctioning. Then, without warning, the brakes engaged slightly, forcing her to slow down. Confused and irritated, she muttered under her breath, convinced there must be something wrong with the mechanics. What Karen failed to understand was that these interventions weren't glitches. They were deliberate actions taken by Homeland security to regain control of the situation. The speed limiters and automatic braking systems were designed to protect both the driver and the integrity of the operation. Unfortunately for Karen, her stubbornness only made things worse. Instead of pulling over to investigate the issue, she fought against the car's resistance, determined to prove that she was in charge. Her reckless driving soon attracted unwanted attention, not just from Homeland Security, but also from the very criminals they were trying to catch. The hackers, who had been monitoring the decoy data, drives inside the Lamborghini, detected unusual activity emanating from the vehicle. Believing the trap had been sprung prematurely, they sprang into action, deploying 2 unmarked cars to intercept the Lambo and retrieve what they thought was valuable intel. Karen barely had time to react when the first car appeared in her rearview mirror, gaining ground rapidly. Her initial confusion turned to panic as the vehicle rammed into the back of the Lamborghini, sending her swerving across 3 lanes of traffic. Horns blared and headlights flashed as other drivers scrambled to avoid the collision. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, Karen screamed curses at her pursuers, completely oblivious to the fact that she was caught in the middle of a high-stakes game involving federal agents and cybercriminals. The second car joined the chase, boxing Karen in from the side. Desperate to escape, she veered off the main road and onto a narrow dirt path leading toward an abandoned industrial park. Dust kicked up behind her as she floored the accelerator, hoping to lose her mysterious attackers. But no matter how fast she drove, they remained hot on her tail, their headlights illuminating the darkness like predatory eyes. By now, Homeland security agents were closing in as well. A fleet of black SUVs trailed discreetly behind the hackers' vehicles, ready to neutralize the threat. Overhead, drones captured footage of the chaotic scene, relaying it back to command centers where analysts worked tirelessly to coordinate the next move. Despite the escalating danger, the agents maintained their distance, careful not to reveal their presence until absolutely necessary. Karen finally skidded to a halt in the deserted lot, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. The sound of screeching tires announced the arrival of her pursuers, who surrounded the Lamborghini with menacing precision. Their faces were obscured by masks, and their intentions were clear. They wanted whatever was inside the car, and they weren't leaving without it. For a brief moment, Karen considered stepping out and confronting them. Maybe if she explained that she was just borrowing the car, they'd let her go unharmed. But before she could act, bright red and blue lights flooded the area. Sirens wailed in the distance as Homeland security agents descended upon the scene. Weapons drawn and orders shouted. The hackers froze, realizing too late that they had walked straight into a federal sting operation. One by one, they raised their hands in surrender, while Karen sat frozen in the driver's seat, her wide eyes reflecting the flashing lights around her. It was only then that the gravity of her actions began to sink in. She hadn't just stolen a car. She had unwittingly become entangled in a dangerous mission far beyond her comprehension. As agents approached the Lamborghini, Karen fumbled with the door handle, stumbling out into the open. Her legs trembled beneath her as she faced the harsh reality of what she had done. All she could think about was how this night had spiraled so wildly out of control, and how she would ever explain herself to the authorities, let alone her neighbors. Little did Karen know her reckless joyride was about to uncover truths that would change everything, not just for her, but for everyone involved. The industrial park was eerily silent, save for the blaring sirens and flashing lights of Homeland security vehicles that now dominated the scene. Karen stood frozen beside the Lamborghini, her hands trembling as she tried to process the chaos unfolding around her. The hackers who had been pursuing her were now lined up against their cars, their masked faces illuminated by the harsh glow of floodlights. Federal agents moved with precision, securing the area and handcuffing the suspects one by one. It was a surreal moment, like something out of an action movie, but this was real life, and Karen found herself at the center of it all. Agent Ramirez stepped forward, his calm demeanor masking the intensity of the situation. He approached Karen first, his eyes narrowing slightly as he assessed her disheveled appearance. Her once pristine blouse was wrinkled, her hair tangled from the wind whipping through the open windows of the Lambo during her reckless drive. Despite her obvious fear, there was still a hint of defiance in her posture, as if she believed she could somehow justify her actions. "Ma'am," Agent Ramirez began, his voice firm but not unkind. "Do you mind explaining what you're doing here, and why you're driving this vehicle?" Karen's mouth opened and closed several times before any words came out. When they did, they tumbled out in a jumbled rush. I wasn't stealing it. I just wanted to teach Alex a lesson about flaunting his wealth. He thinks he's better than everyone else because of that ridiculous car. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." She gestured wildly at the scene around her. The handcuffed hackers, the swarm of federal agents, the high-tech equipment being unloaded from black SUVs. Agent Ramirez exchanged a glance with one of his colleagues, before turning back to Karen. "You realize this isn't just a car, right? It's part of a federal operation targeting a dangerous cybercrime syndicate. By tampering with it and taking it for a joyride, you've jeopardized months of planning." Karen blinked rapidly, her face pale. "A federal operation? What are you talking about? That's Alex's car." "It's Alex's car on paper," Ramirez clarified, "but it's also equipped with surveillance gear and decoy data drives meant to lure criminals into exposing themselves. These individuals," he pointed to the hackers, "are part of an international hacking ring responsible for stealing millions of dollars and compromising sensitive information. Your little stunt nearly cost us the entire mission." Karen's knees buckled and she sank onto the hood of the Lamborghini, overwhelmed by the weight of what she'd done. For the first time, she understood the enormity of her mistake. This wasn't just about teaching Alex a lesson or sticking it to the HOA. It was about national security, criminal enterprises, and lives potentially at risk. And she had played right into their hands without even realizing it. Meanwhile, Alex arrived on the scene, escorted by another agent who briefed him on the situation as they approached. His expression shifted between disbelief, anger, and reluctant. amusement as he took in the spectacle. When he spotted Karen sitting on his car looking utterly defeated, he couldn't help but shake his head. "Karen," he said, his tone laced with exasperation, "what on earth were you thinking? Did you really think cutting the lock and driving off in my Lambo would teach me some kind of moral lesson?" Karen looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know what I thought. I just wanted to make a point. I never imagined." Her voice trailed off as she gestured helplessly at the scene around them. Alex sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "Well, congratulations, you made your point and then some. But next time, maybe try sending a strongly worded email instead of commandeering a federally rigged supercar." As much as Alex wanted to stay angry, he couldn't ignore the absurdity of the situation. Here was Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of neighborhood rules, caught in the middle of a high-stakes sting operation involving international criminals and government agents. If anything, her actions had inadvertently helped bring down a major cybercrime network. Still, the damage to his car, and his nerves, was undeniable. While Karen processed her role in the debacle, Homeland Security agents worked quickly to secure the evidence. They retrieved the decoy data drives from the false compartment inside the Lamborghini, ensuring that none of the hackers had managed to access them. Forensic teams examined the vehicle for signs of tampering, while analysts reviewed footage captured by the hidden cameras and GPS trackers. Every detail was meticulously documented, piecing together the events that had led to this dramatic confrontation. The hackers, meanwhile, were loaded into separate vehicles and transported to a secure facility for questioning. Their capture marked a significant victory for Homeland Security, though the agents knew the fight against cybercrime was far from over. These arrests would provide valuable intel, helping to dismantle other branches of the syndicate and prevent future attacks. Inadvertently, Karen's impulsive decision to steal the Lambo had accelerated the timeline of the operation, forcing the hackers to act sooner than they had planned. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, Agent Ramirez turned his attention back to Karen. "Ms. Miller, we'll need you to come with us to answer some questions. Don't worry, you're not under arrest, but we do need to understand exactly what happened tonight." Karen nodded numbly, too shaken to argue. As she climbed into one of the SUVs, she glanced back at Alex, who gave her a small, almost sympathetic smile. Despite everything, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of gratitude toward him. After all, he hadn't pressed charges or demanded retribution. He simply seemed relieved that no one had been seriously hurt. Back at the command center, Karen was questioned extensively about her motives and actions. She explained her frustration with Alex's perceived arrogance and her misguided attempt to assert authority within the HOA. While her intentions may have stemmed from a desire to maintain order in the neighborhood, her methods had clearly crossed a line. The agents listened, patiently jotting down notes but refraining from judgment. By the end of the interview, it was clear that Karen had acted out of ignorance rather than malice. When the dust finally settled, the full scope of the night's events became apparent. Thanks to Karen's ill-conceived joyride, Homeland Security had successfully apprehended key members of the hacking syndicate, recovering crucial evidence in the process. The operation, which might have taken weeks or even months to unfold naturally, had reached its climax in a matter of hours, all because one woman decided to take matters into her own hands. For Alex, the experience was both infuriating and enlightening. He realized how fortunate he was to have avoided disaster, knowing that things could have easily gone sideways if the hackers had managed to overpower Karen or escape with the decoy drives. As he watched the agents load the Lamborghini onto a flatbed truck for transport back to his driveway, he felt a renewed appreciation for the complexity of the world he had unknowingly stepped into. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the industrial park, Karen sat quietly in the back seat of the SUV, staring out the window. She thought about the choices that had led her here, the petty grievances, the inflated sense of entitlement, the misplaced sense of justice. For the first time in years, she questioned whether enforcing rules at any cost was truly worth it. Perhaps, she mused, there was more to life than maintaining appearances and wielding power over others. Little did Karen know, her journey was far from over. The repercussions of her actions would ripple through the neighborhood and her own life for months to come. But for now, as the sun rose higher in the sky, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection, vowing to learn from her mistakes and approach the future with humility. And so what had started as a simple act of rebellion had spiraled into a night of chaos, danger, and unexpected consequences. Yet amidst the madness, one truth remained clear. Sometimes the smallest decisions can lead to the biggest outcomes, and not always in ways we anticipate. In the days following the dramatic events at the industrial park, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Word spread quickly about Karen's late-night escapade, though details were murky and exaggerated. Some neighbors claimed she had been involved in a high-speed chase with drug dealers, while others whispered that she'd stolen Alex's Lamborghini to run away from her crumbling marriage. The truth, of course, was far stranger and more complicated than any rumor. Karen, for her part, tried to lay low. She avoided morning walks, skipped HOA meetings, and kept her curtains drawn. Every time the doorbell rang or her phone lit up with an incoming call, her heart raced, expecting another round of questioning or worse, judgment from the very people she had once lorded over. But staying out of sight wasn't enough to shield her from the fallout. By midweek, local news outlets had picked up the story, dubbing her HOA Karen and turning her into an overnight sensation, or rather, an object of ridicule. Television. Anchors joked about her antics during evening broadcasts, replaying grainy security footage of the Lamborghini speeding through suburban streets. Social media exploded with memes featuring Karen's face photoshopped onto various absurd scenarios. Driving spaceships, racing Formula One cars, even riding dinosaurs. Her name became synonymous with overzealous rule enforcement gone horribly wrong. At first, Karen buried herself in blankets on the couch, refusing to look at her phone or turn on the TV. But as the days passed, she couldn't ignore the reality, staring back at her every time she ventured online, or stepped outside to find yet another neighbor smirking knowingly. Alex, meanwhile, found himself thrust into the spotlight as well. Reporters camped outside his house, eager to learn more about the mysterious Lamborghini and its connection to a federal sting operation. While Homeland Security handled most of the official statements, Alex agreed to a brief interview under the condition that sensitive details remain undisclosed. Sitting in his living room, dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, he recounted the bizarre sequence of events leading up to Karen's joyride. "I never imagined something like this could happen," he said with a wry smile. "One minute I'm just a guy who likes fast cars, and the next I'm part of some James Bond-style mission to catch cybercriminals. It's surreal." When asked about Karen, Alex chose his words carefully. "Look, I don't condone what she did. Cutting the lock and taking my car without permission is unacceptable. But at the same time, I can see how someone might misinterpret the situation. If you didn't know the full context, you'd think it was just a fancy car sitting in a driveway. You wouldn't guess it was being used by the government to stop dangerous criminals." His measured response earned him praise from both neighbors and reporters. Unlike Karen, who seemed to crumble under the weight of public scrutiny, Alex handled the attention with grace and humor. He even went so far as to express sympathy for Karen, acknowledging that her actions, while reckless, stemmed from a desire to uphold community standards, even if those standards were misguided. The federal investigation continued behind closed doors, with agents piecing together the final puzzle pieces of the cybercrime syndicate. Thanks to the evidence recovered from the Lamborghini, including data logs, surveillance footage, and intercepted communications, they were able to identify additional members of the hacking ring operating across multiple countries. Arrest warrants were issued, and law enforcement agencies worldwide coordinated efforts to dismantle the network. For Karen, the aftermath was less glamorous. Though charges against her were eventually dropped due to lack of criminal intent, the damage to her reputation was irreversible. Friends distanced themselves, citing discomfort with the unwanted attention her actions had brought to the neighborhood. Strangers stopped her in grocery store aisles to ask invasive questions or snap photos without permission. Even her own family struggled to reconcile the woman they knew with the caricature portrayed in the media. Desperate to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, Karen resigned from her position in the HOA. She drafted a short letter apologizing for her behavior, which she slipped under each neighbor's door. In it, she admitted fault for taking matters into her own hands and promised to reflect on the lessons learned from the experience. Whether anyone believed her sincerity remained unclear, but the gesture marked the beginning of her attempt to rebuild trust. As weeks turned into months, life in the neighborhood slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Lawnmowers hummed, children played in cul-de-sacs, and mailboxes were painted in approved colors. Yet the memory of HOA Karen lingered like a ghost, resurfacing whenever someone parked a flashy car in their driveway or questioned the wisdom of strict HOA regulations. For Alex, the incident served as both a cautionary tale and a reminder of life's unpredictability. He donated a portion of the reward money he received from Homeland Security to local charities, earning goodwill from his neighbors. When asked why he hadn't pressed charges against Karen, he shrugged and replied, "Simply, we all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward from them." The Lamborghini, after undergoing extensive repairs, returned to its rightful place in Alex's driveway. This time, however, it came equipped with even more sophisticated security measures, biometric locks, remote disabling capabilities, and reinforced compartments designed to deter future tampering. Despite everything, Alex still loved the car, though he couldn't help but chuckle whenever he thought about the chaos it had unleashed. Karen, too, found ways to move forward. Unable to bear the constant reminders of her misdeeds, she put her house on the market and relocated to a quieter town several hours away. There she started fresh, volunteering at community centers and focusing on building genuine connections rather than enforcing arbitrary rules. Though she occasionally stumbled upon old memes or headlines about herself, she refused to let them define her. Instead, she embraced the opportunity to grow and change, viewing the ordeal as a wake-up call. In the end, the story of Karen and the Lamborghini became a lesson in unintended consequences. For Karen, it highlighted the dangers of letting pride and frustration override reason. For Alex, it underscored the importance of humility and forgiveness. And for everyone else, it served as a reminder that life rarely follows a predictable script. Sometimes the smallest decisions can lead to the biggest adventures, whether we're ready for them or not. Though Karen's stunt had nearly derailed a critical federal operation, it ultimately contributed to dismantling a major cybercrime. In a strange twist of fate, her reckless impulsiveness had helped protect countless lives and safeguard valuable information. As Alex often joked when recounting the tale, if nothing else, Karen gave us one hell of a story to tell. Months after the chaos of that fateful night, the neighborhood had settled back into its usual rhythm. The manicured lawns were still pristine, the HOA meetings ran smoothly, albeit with a new chairperson, and life seemed almost normal. But beneath the surface, subtle changes lingered in the air. Neighbors who once tiptoed around Karen's strict rules now felt freer to express themselves. A few residents even joked about starting a petition to rename the cul-de-sac Lambo Lane, in honor of the drama that had unfolded there. For Alex Carter, the incident became a defining chapter in his life, not because of the attention it brought him, but because of the lessons he took away from it. He realized how interconnected the world truly was, how one seemingly small decision could set off a chain reaction with far-reaching consequences. His Lamborghini, once just a symbol of personal success, now represented something greater: the importance of using resources wisely and responsibly. It wasn't just a car anymore. It was a reminder of resilience, teamwork, and the unpredictable nature of life. The federal operation, too, wrapped up successfully. Thanks to the evidence gathered during the sting, Homeland Security dismantled a significant portion of the cybercrime syndicate. Several high-profile arrests followed, leading to convictions and the recovery of stolen funds worth millions. Analysts praised the mission as a textbook example of adaptive strategy, noting how quickly agents responded when things spiraled out of control. In internal debriefings, they credited Karen's accidental involvement, not for her actions themselves, but for forcing the hackers to act prematurely. Without realizing it, She had accelerated the timeline of the operation, giving authorities the upper hand. Karen Miller, on the other hand, faced a reckoning unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Moving to a quieter town allowed her to escape the constant whispers and judgmental stares, but rebuilding her life wasn't easy. She spent months reflecting on her choices, questioning why she had clung so tightly to control and authority. Her time away taught her valuable lessons about humility, empathy, and the dangers of letting frustration dictate behavior. Slowly but surely, she began repairing relationships, not just with others, but with herself. In her new community, Karen found solace in volunteering at a local food bank and mentoring young people interested in leadership. These experiences opened her eyes to different perspectives, helping her understand that enforcing rules isn't always about maintaining order. It's about fostering connection and trust. One day, while organizing supplies for a charity drive, she overheard someone mention her infamous nickname HOA Karen. Instead of bristling or retreating, she laughed along with them, acknowledging the absurdity of her past actions. That moment marked a turning point. She finally embraced the idea that everyone makes mistakes, and what matters most is learning from them. Back in the old neighborhood, Alex continued to thrive. His tech company expanded into new markets, earning accolades for innovative cybersecurity solutions. Inspired by his involvement in the federal operation, he launched a program aimed at educating communities about online safety and digital responsibility. He partnered with schools, libraries, and nonprofit organizations to host workshops, sharing insights gleaned from his unique experience. When asked why he chose this path, he simply said, "If I can help even one person avoid becoming a target, or worse, a victim, I'll consider it time well spent." Despite their differing paths, Alex and Karen crossed paths again unexpectedly. Several months after Karen's departure, Alex received a letter in the mail. It was handwritten, the ink smudged slightly as if written with care and perhaps a touch of nervousness. Inside, Karen apologized once more for her role in the incident, expressing gratitude for his restraint and forgiveness. She admitted that the ordeal had forced her to reevaluate her priorities and promised to keep striving toward positive change. Touched by her sincerity, Alex decided to reach out. They met for coffee at a quiet cafe halfway between their respective towns. The conversation started awkwardly, both unsure of where to begin, but as they talked, laughter replaced tension, and shared memories softened lingering resentment. By the end of their meeting, they parted ways not as adversaries, but as two people who had grown through adversity. As years passed, the story of Karen faded from headlines, though it remained a favorite topic at neighborhood gatherings. Parents used it as a cautionary tale for their kids, emphasizing the importance of thinking before acting. Teens turned it into urban legend, adding embellishments like secret tunnels beneath the industrial park or alien sightings during the chase. And Alex? He kept the tale alive in his own way, weaving it into speeches and interviews as a testament to human fallibility and redemption. One summer evening, Alex stood in his driveway, gazing at the Lamborghini bathed in golden sunlight. Beside him sat his dog, wagging its tail lazily. For a moment he reflected on everything that had transpired. The thrill of owning such a magnificent machine, the terror of nearly losing it, and the strange camaraderie forged in the aftermath. Life, he mused, was full of twists and turns, much like the winding roads he loved to drive. Just then, a familiar figure approached, a woman walking briskly down the street, clutching a clipboard. At first glance, Alex thought it might be Karen, returning for a nostalgic visit. But as she drew closer, he realized it was someone else entirely, a new neighbor eager to introduce herself. Smiling warmly, Alex welcomed her, ready to share stories of the quirky, chaotic, and ultimately unforgettable world they now shared. And so, the legacy of Karen and the Lamborghini lived on, not as a tale of shame or regret, but as a reminder that even in moments of chaos, growth and understanding are possible. Whether you're racing down highways or navigating the complexities of human relationships, the journey itself is what shapes us. Sometimes all it takes is a little perspective, and maybe a supercar rigged by Homeland Security, to see the bigger picture.